Hey, Richard Mellor here, Facts for Working People again. I wanted to say a few words just today about the trade union leadership, about organised labour and the trade union leadership. I was at the teachers' rally in Oakland yesterday. I haven't been up there every day or anything like that and following very deeply. In general, I have. And so I was up there at the rally yesterday, and the Oakland Education Association, which represents the teachers, is in the NEA, the California Teachers Association, which is the state arm of the National Education Association, which is the National Teachers Union. They are not affiliated to the AFL-CIO. Also part of the strike are some SEIU people they're instructional assistants. They are affiliated to the AFL-CIO, SEIU is, and AFSCME. I think they have some AFSCME members. There may be some others, I'm not sure. But the teachers are overwhelmingly the NEA, which is the largest union in the United States. California used to have about 330,000 members in the NEA. I think it's somewhat less now, maybe around 300,000 members. And of course, there's the AFT, which is the American Federation of Teachers, which is an AFL-CIO affiliate. California in general is a fairly unionized state. We got 2 million workers affiliated to the California Labor Federation. And before I go on about that, I'll explain what that is. That's the state arm of the National AFL-CIO. Then there's county arms, like the Alameda County Labor Council here where I live. The unions that are affiliated to the AFL-CIO affiliate to that council. They go on strike, they get sanctioned, in other words, it's legal, it's not a wildcat, and they offer them some sort of help. Sometimes, not to cross picket lines. They won't cross picket lines up to a point. They'll donate money and this sort of the thing. So that's who the California State Labor Federation is the state arm with 2 million workers affiliated to it. County is the county arm, Alameda County Labor Council. Los Angeles Labor Federation, the city of Los Angeles, has about 800,000 workers affiliated to it. So it's a fairly unionized state. And as I say, the non-AFL-CIO, the NEA, the teachers that are in the California Teachers Association, they have about 300,000 members here. So I was up. We had the LA strike. We've just recently there was some small improvements there. The Oakland went out last Thursday. This is the fifth. Thursday, Friday, Monday. This is the fourth day of the strike. So I was up at the rally yesterday. I couldn't stay too long up there. But I was talking to a number of people, and I made a little bit of a clip video. I just interviewed a couple of people, but I did talk to quite a few others. And it's the DSA, a lot of DSA folks are helping them build community support and what have you. And that's very good that we do that. And from what I understand, there is considerable community support. But I overheard something I've that I hear and I've heard for 35 years. I heard what somebody from the podium announced to the crowd, and remember when there hasn't been a strike, I don't think, since '96. So that was the last teachers one, I think. I remember that because I ran for Oakland City Council at that time. And so there's a lot of new people. There's also a lot of new young people in DSA and what have you. And I heard somebody from the podium talk about somebody being present that represents 125,000 workers. And the Labour's got your back, or the local Labour movement's got your back, something along these lines. And I'm pretty much certain that they were talking about a representative from the Alameda Central Labor Council who was probably there representing that body. And that'll happen oftentimes. You'll get somebody come from the Teamsters to another picket line and say, I represent 4,000 Teamsters in local sometime, blah, blah. And the Central Labor Council official will come and I represent 125,000 workers. I used to see the head of this Labor Council in San Francisco saying the same thing at rallies. And so I turned to this young teacher next to me, and I said, well, Labour doesn't have your back. And he says, well, I'm here. And I said, well, no, that's very good you're here. But that guy that's talking about, or woman, I don't know who heads it anymore, 125,000 workers representing them, those workers have no idea who that person is. Those workers are not there, and he's not going to tell them to come there. There's going to be no campaign to mobilise those workers that are affiliated to that Labour Council to come to the picket lines, to come to the rallies, to ensure that OEA and the teachers win their battle. And it's the same. Recently I was at a strike in Pittsburgh, California here, and I went out there. There's a Contra Costa Labour Council, and they were picketing. They don't really stop. I've got it on the blog. You'll see about that if you look under Labour. It was a strike out there, and they're not really strikes in a sense. They're 24-hour protests because the workers don't stop anybody going in. Once or twice on this strike I'm describing, they stopped some people from going in, and the company called the Central Labour Council and the union heads, they came down and told the workers not to stop people going in. So they're eating donuts, drinking coffee for 12 weeks at Christmas time. It's a miserable situation. But I went there and I mentioned to them on the picket line, I started to talk to them. I said, look, the Contra Costa Labour Council has 80-something thousand members in it. The first question to me was, well, can't they get them here? Can't they get them out? Very good question. They could get them out. And the guy that stands up and goes on and has done for 30 years about different people, of course, have said, I bring the voice of 135,000, 165,000 members that belong to the so-and-so Federation of Labour. It's just bravado. It's feel-good. They're not there. They're not going to get them there. And they don't even know he's there. They probably don't know who that person is. And the reason they don't is not their problem. It's because that body plays no fundamental role in their lives in the struggle for a better life. Now, that's one of the reasons so many people, there's so much, people are still overwhelmingly pro-union. But there's a lot of dissatisfaction if you talk to most rank and file people. You'll go in a Safeway and you'll talk to them and they'll complain about the union if they don't think that you're one of the union officials. So, but they're correct about that, but they're not correct that would be in a catastrophic state without them. Any union's better than no union. It does affect your life because the bosses will give you a little crumb to keep the union out. And but I explain that to them up there because there's this, after a while, when you're out on strike, it gets pretty tough. Those hotel strikes in San Francisco back some years ago, they were out there. It gets rough after a while. The union officials even had tape up so that the workers never impeded the people going into the hotels. You can't shout. The union officials don't shout. You mustn't make any noise. You must be careful. We have to show the community that we're professional and all this and the other. And so somebody sent me a question about why is it that they won't fight. And a lot of people will say, well, they're corrupt. They're a mafia. They're on the attack. They're on the take and all this, that and the other. And Hollywood, of course, promotes the idea that the unions were built by the mafia or gangsters. And it's just false. They were built by honest, hard-working people. But a lot of rank and file workers and union members will make that argument. But it's not the main problem. Of course, there's corruption in the unions. We live in a corrupt society. But in the main, I mean, I was a delegate to my Central Labour Council for about 12 years. I can't say there was any corruption there. But the problem is that they're corrupt or bankrupt ideologically. The union leadership and its strategists, they have the same worldview as the employer, as the bosses. So what is the point of them mobilizing this immense potential power? I mean, we control the docks, the unionized workers in this state, the 6th largest economy in the world. The problem is with mobilizing people and getting them together is controlling what they want. And when people get together, I mean, at my place, we had 2 AFSCME locals, a white collar and a blue collar, and the union leadership of the white collar that was much more conservative always opposed joint membership meetings, and they would blame it on me, on Roger Martinez, on Marvin Kane, on Cheryl Zer, on communists, on gays, on anything, loud people, any personal crap, to use the excuse that they opposed, to justify their reason for opposing mass membership meetings of the two membership meetings of the two locals, because then when people get together, they get a sense of their own power, they influence each other. And a leadership that basically does not want to confront the employer on the main issues, that could be the end of it for them. Their job may be done. They don't want, that would place demands on them they're not prepared to take up. And it's the same with the wider labour movement. The reason the Central Labour Council, they'll use all excuses. It's organisational. Oh, we can't do that. We give our locals autonomy, and it's all bull. It's all bull. The primary reason that the locals, individual locals, union locals, are left to fight what are global capitalist individuals and global corporations are left to fight them alone, is because the thought of mobilizing their members, not just in one local, but in a widespread, would bring the courts down on them, bring them into a direct confrontation with the bosses, and they'd try and take the money. There's a word for it, but I can't recall it. But fine them and what have you. They did that, I think, during that strike of the refineries a few years ago. I was on those picket lines. They could have shut down 65 refineries, but they shut down, I think it was 9 of them, in order to make sure that they didn't hurt the employer. Well, there you go. You're not going to win that way. So the thing is, they come to these rallies and they talk about the power of labour. And I live in a city, Oakland, that's very highly unionised. The city workers are unionised. My company was unionised, the water company. The bus drivers are unionised. We had the strikes at the SEIU, and the TWU represents the transit operators in the subway system. And they could shut down this economy, and they go on strike, and they're going to make that illegal at some point. But we cannot fight these people alone. We're fighting global capitalism when we take on Safeway, when we take on capital. It's all interconnected. When I ran for Oakland City Council, I remember finding out that somebody told me what determines the policies of Oakland, California, is Pacific Rim trade. That was when I ran for City Council. I got that in one of the brochures the City Council gave me. This is what dominates, because we have one of the largest ports here. We have a container port. We have an airport. It's a dock. So we can't possibly win. Individual locals win. We have to have community support. In order to get community support, we have to fight for the community. We have to fight for more jobs. We have to fight for a shorter work week. We have to fight for social issues. And that's why some of these strikes, especially the teachers right now, they've been hammered over the years, but some of them have made minor gains, and that's good that they've made minor gains. But we have to demand, and the reason that demands that are made are fairly minor is because the union leadership as a whole cannot force, will not confront capital head on. We need to demand what we want, what we need as a society. And then far as not just domestic, but foreign policy has to be condemned, that costs trillions of dollars and costs millions of lives and damages us as American workers because we're tied in with the thugs that run this country. So we cannot win in that way. There was an attempt in the 80s to drive back the offensive of capital, but a combination of the bosses and the trade union leadership undermined those strikes, and those strikes were defeated. Hormel, Easton, 2 Greyhound strikes. There was a real effort there to push back that was in the long term, that was basically defeated by that combination. Not every local leadership made the right decisions, but overwhelmingly it was the labour leadership at the higher levels and a combination of them and the employers. And the the main problem, they accept capitalism, they accept the rights of the boss, and so mobilizing millions of workers. We got 14 million workers in the labor movement, organized labor movement. Mobilizing them around real issues is a terrifying threat to the labor leadership, more so even than the bosses. A, they'll be out of work because they'd be swept aside, and a new leadership would take up. And secondly, it can only lead to chaos for them. That's the fundamental reason, and that will happen to anybody that takes the leadership of the labor movement that has that view, that tries to accommodate capital and appease capital, because there's a conflict there that's not reconcilable. And so, because I've got a couple of questions, I try to keep these things fairly short, and I have a lot of experience in that, as other rank and file people of my age have, and it's something I just wanted to share with folks. I think if we look at, and they don't stress it enough, the union officialdom, and nor does the left, which most of them pander to the labor leadership, to be honest with you. If you look at West Virginia, they went against their own leadership, who told them to go back to work at one point, and they violated state law. They won 5% increase for themselves, 4% above what was offered, and 5% for every other state worker. This is how you win. This is how some of the other strikes in the South won, and they won, and they were able to break the law because the labor officialdom were weaker there. They would have held that militancy back. That they're a big obstacle. At some point, it'll be broken. That dam will be breached. There'll be splits in the labor hierarchy. New elements will arise. They'll also, to a certain extent, try and suppress militancy, but there will be splits, and new, more combative leadership will arise, a bit like the way John L. Lewis arose in the 30s. He was a right-wing hack of Gompers. He ended up using all the communists to mobilize and organize and help, who they were organizing in factories and in housing and everything else. And so I think those teacher strikes, the important thing about them is they were against the law, and they were rank and file led, and that's not something the leadership. They all talk about, please come to union meetings, but don't disagree with us. So anyway, this was just basically in response to a couple of questions I got about why won't the leadership fight, and I always argue against the idea that they're all corrupt. The staffers are full of, a lot of the staffers are ex-lefties, university educated, and that's really the army in the main that imposes the will of the higher bureaucracy on the members. So anyway, that's in response to that question that was sent to me after a couple of articles I put up. All right, so check out our YouTube channel, and check out the blog, Facts for Working People, and the blog's Facebook page on the right. You'll see the address on the blog itself. All right, thanks a lot. Richard Mellor, Facts for Working People.